right. Thank you so much for downloading today's episode of the Red Pill Investor. My name is John Ashley, a pseudonym of a realtor here in the great state of Arizona, here to help you with your real estate sales skills. Why? Well, just sort of my way to pay it forward for all the people who've given me the tips, the tricks, the things to say to get the contract signed when I needed it the most. Their only request of me? Well, just simply pay it forward. And this is my opportunity to you, the listener, in the hopes that one day you'll pay it forward in your way. That way we'll keep this community alive and kicking. And boy, I sure do appreciate you downloading today's episode of the Red Pill Investor. I'll do my very best to go ahead and do the best job I can at giving you the content I can in the next few minutes that you've so graciously given me. And today, what we're going to talk about is how to wholesale houses ethically. How to wholesale houses ethically. Now, as a new wholesaler, you may have a few questions about how to be ethical in your approach towards homeowners. Now, I don't mean that you're out to steal or rob or kill or, financially hurt anybody. No, not at all. But what I do mean is that many times new wholesalers simply are just not familiar with the nuances or the expectations of all the parties. And because of this, it creates this perception of a illegal or perhaps unethical transaction. For realtors who invest, it can be, a career-ending mistake. And for the unlicensed, there are legal and civil ramifications that you have to consider if you plan on making wholesaling your career. So, if you've got a pen and you got a piece of paper, I wrote down a few points that I'd like to share with you today. And what we're going to start off with, point number 1, ethics for the realtor. Ethics for the realtor. So let's approach this issue from an ethics perspective. For realtors, the National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics, Article 4, outlines our responsibility to disclose our principal nature. Whenever you're deciding to work on your own behalf or for your family member or something like this, you and I both know as realtors we have to disclose our position in the transaction, especially if we're a principal. Now, a principal is nothing more than a buyer. You're a buyer or a seller in a transaction. You're not an agent. So even the code itself makes this distinction between agents and principals. And for the Red Pill Investor sales system, that works out pretty well because that's all I've ever taught you is your need to act, walk, talk, and be the buyer. The closer you are as a buyer, a real principal in the transaction, well then the less questions there are with you as an agent. Now, it doesn't mean that you're not an agent anymore. No, of course, you will always be an agent in the eyes of the law, regardless of your transaction. But the idea there is disclosure. You see, it's important for the license to recognize this important factor. You have to understand and accept that at the time you're dealing with a customer, you're not dealing with a client. It's very important that you appreciate the difference. A customer, not a client. Clients, you see, receive fiduciary duties. I mean, you remember what they are, the fiduciary duties, confidentiality, accountability, record keeping, right? Loyalty. That's kind of hard to keep if you're trying to work for yourself, right? When you think about all of the fiduciary responsibilities that a seller or a buyer gets from an agent, that's the last thing you want to do in a wholesale transaction. You do not want to act as a principal in any way. Point number 2, ethics for the unlicensed wholesaler. Now, as an unlicensed wholesaler, okay, you don't have to concern yourself with a code of ethics. No, you're not bound to that. However, you do want, to cultivate this image that you're an ethical, straightforward, honest, straight shooting kind of guy or gal. I mean, that's what you want in your business. You want people to look at you and say, you know what? I have no doubt in my mind that this guy or gal is ethical. That's the image you want to go ahead and make sure you live up to. And the most common places where I see wholesalers failing is in this area. Oh, I know you, again, don't mean to do anything. You're not trying to hurt anybody or anything like that. But the way it works out, this is where you find the problems. So most of the problems, the most common place I find the problem, where I can see wholesalers failing, is in an ill-written or unclear contract. An ill-written or an unclear contract can cause all sorts of confusion throughout your transaction. Think about it. Every single problem you've ever faced in a real estate transaction can be answered by the contract. What does your contract say? If you're using a substandard or ill-written contract, well, guess what? You're naturally going to have confusion and problems throughout the transaction. It starts off right from the beginning. Another way is failure to follow up adequately. When you're failing to follow up adequately with your seller or your buyers, right? You're starting to give them, especially a motivated seller, the mushroom treatment, right? You keep them in the dark and you feed them crap all the time, right? Incomplete or absent disclosures can obviously give the impression of deceit. Listen, in your contract, make sure it's very clear that you do not intend to reside in the premises. This is not my house. This is not where I'm going to live. No, 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 no. Instead, the buyer, that's me, reserves the right. I'm keeping that right to myself, to assign, rent, lease, repair, sell for profit. But no matter what, I'm selling it for a profit. When that's crystal clear in the contract, well, then there's no confusion about what's going to happen. You see, what is necessary is an upgrade to everything you do. You see, if you're new, let me just say a couple words that I think will absolutely help you. Listen, if I've watched Bigger Pockets, I've watched Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of the social media, and I keep seeing the same problems with wholesalers and realtors starting out wholesaling. If you get tired of paying thousands and thousands of dollars for information that seldom gives you the real world application, well, then you absolutely, positively must join Premium Podcast today. That's a non-issue for you. If you're tired of getting all this bum information that's outdated, that doesn't help you, that doesn't give you the real world skills, then this is clearly the option for you. With over 12 hours of video footage spread out over 20 videos covering pricing, how to determine price, how to write a contract, all of this stuff and much, much more. They've got 80 audio files with just, hours of real life sellers, real life buyers that I've talked to. So you can hear what they're saying, literally. So you have no doubt in your mind exactly what they're saying and how to handle it. There's over 20 downloadable swipe files. There's access to all the premium podcasts I've ever done. Think about it, over 400 podcasts that we have available, many of which are premium podcasts that you've probably never heard. You're going to have access to the premium podcast 10-Minute Skill Mastermind on Facebook. There's over 40 full-time investors and realtors standing by to help you. And at $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, it's a tremendous value. And all the webinars that I've ever held, including the ones that I've done for the Council of Residential Specialists, the how to sell the how to powerhouse your open house, or how to sell the unsaleable listing, 14 categories. It's just a ton of information that is available for you. So there's literally no excuse for you to say, I can't afford it and I don't know how to make my business a professional business. This is the way. Point number 3. How to ethically wholesale for profit. How to ethically wholesale for profit. You see, it comes from having skill. And if you're new right now, you don't have a lot of that. And that's okay. You're fine where you are. When I did my first wholesale deal, trust me, I didn't know a thing. I didn't have a buyer's list, didn't even know a thing about bandit signs. But if you choose, and again, that's what it is, it's a choice. If you choose to work on your skills, understand that an enormous part of your success comes not by tithing. No, no, I'm afraid not. As much as God loves you, okay, he's got bigger fish to fry than worrying about your real estate deal right now and the effect of your tithing in his kingdom. Okay? It doesn't come from sacrificing bulls to the real estate gods. No, it comes from our personal integrity. A commitment to be honest, no matter what the cost. And that's a critical point. You want to highlight that, underline it, star it, whatever it takes for you to remember. You have got to appreciate that one fact. If you want to wholesale ethically for profit, it doesn't come from all these other things. It comes from you and your personal integrity, your commitment that you're going to tell that seller or that buyer the truth no matter what it costs you. If it costs you the deal because you told them the truth, then so be it. Why? Because when you generate, you don't have to tolerate. Point number 4. Now, it would be dumb for me to talk about wholesaling houses ethically and not give you some concrete plans. I'm not so foolish as to think that you're going to listen to a 20-minute thing, 10-minute thing, and then all of a sudden just get it. I understand. So if you've got a pen and you got a piece of paper, point number 4, I'm going to give you a step-by-step checklist. A, proper disclosure of your status as a principal. Listen, no matter if you're an agent or an unlicensed person, you have got to make it crystal clear to the person on the other end of the contract that you are a buyer or you are the seller. You are the decision maker. You're the principal. You're not trying to sell it to somebody else. You're not trying to, go find you a buyer. None of that nonsense. You're trying to buy the house. Second, B, principals to the transaction keep their options open. Now, if you go into every single problem thinking it's a nail and the only tool you have is a hammer, well, guess what? You're going to be banging nails all the time, right? Every problem's a hammer when you got a nail. Every problem is a nail when you got a hammer. And when you think about it, if you walk into every transaction and you think to yourself, well, gosh, this is just a wholesale deal and that's all it is, well, then that's all you're going to try. But if you keep your options open by saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to reside in the premises. I'm going to either lease it, rent it, sell it, sign it for a profit. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep all my options open. Then that gives you the ethical way to search for your end result, and it gives you a clear path of what to do when it doesn't work out. C, disclosures of all available relevant comparables. Now, I know some of you are getting ready to hit the stop button, but if you'll give me 15 seconds, I will share with you why this is important. If you use all available relevant comparables, you're not going to disadvantage your position. Here's why. If you are going to go out and buy a property for yourself to live in, okay, then yes, it would not be a great idea necessarily for you to disadvantage yourself to come in and say, well, gosh, here's all the comparables and blah, 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 blah. That could work to your disadvantage. I can see that. In this case, however, the comparables are irrelevant. You're not trying to buy this property relative to the comparables. No, you're purchasing it only for what you feel it's worth to you. only for what you feel it's worth to you. It's irrelevant what they want. It's irrelevant what the comps are. It's only worth what you're willing to pay. And trust me, there's no way you can logically, many times, go ahead and explain why you're coming in 30, 40% below market. Just sometimes it's just clearly not a logical thing. It's an emotional thing. So don't worry about the comparables. Show them what the comparables are. At the end of the day, they're going to make a decision based on their belief in you and whether or not you're ethical enough and honest enough to get it done. D, use of a state contract modified for your purposes. Man, I know I'm just swinging for the fences with you guys, trying to train you to do better. Listen, if you're not using a state contract, you need to. If you're a realtor, you have to. Think about it. Is there any logical reason why a realtor would not use a state-approved contract? I mean, think about it. If you had to face a judge or a deposition or whatever, and the attorney asked you, well, gosh, Mr. and Mrs. Agent, how come during this wholesale deal you chose to use a 2-page contract as opposed to your state contract when 99% of all the other agents use a state contract? You know what that means when you get 99% of everybody else doing something? In the legal sense, that becomes what's called a reasonable man concept. This is what a reasonable person would do if given the similar circumstances. And if you're a realtor, your reasonable man is another realtor. That's the person who you're competing with, and they're the person who would use a contract. So if you're not using a state contract and you're a realtor, you're setting yourself up for disaster. Now, if you're an unlicensed wholesaler, no, there is no requirement for you to use a state contract. There's no requirement for you to use any contract in particular, so long as it's written. But the point is that you have to think about the contingencies, the things that are get you between A and B, the things that are going to handle those questions that come up. Well, what happens if the seller doesn't close? What happens if the seller says they don't want to close? What happens if the seller won't let me in the house? What happens if this? What happens if that? When you have a state contract that you understand, all of those questions are answered. And remember, if you're wholesaling, okay, you're not selling the house. You're selling the paper. And if you're selling the paper, which is a state contract, guess what? You have an entire group of people now that you can sell it to that you couldn't before. Why? Realtors can now bring their clients to your deals when you're using a state contract. Point number E of our step-by-step checklist to ensure you have an ethical transaction. Use clear, well-written contracts. Listen, most of the contracts are boilerplate, and I get it, okay? But there are a lot of phrases and terms and things that you can use to help you. Things like escalator clauses, things like, anticipated repudiation. I mean, if somebody's trying to back out of your contract, there's tons of ways to get them into mediation so they can't. I mean, there's plenty of things you can do when you're using a state contract, especially if it's clear and well written. F, exercising your rights as per the contract. You see, when you start with the end in mind, understanding that the entire transaction from start to finish is governed by the transaction, is governed by the contract, well then you're not doing anything different than acting according to what the contract says. Now, if you decide to lease it out to somebody after you close, great, who cares? I know they don't care. But if you decide to assign it out to somebody else, well then they might care. And wouldn't it be helpful if in the additional comments you put down that language to where if a title officer looks at you in the eye and says, oh gosh, you can't wholesale this, you can't assign it because of X, Y, or Z, you can say confidently, look, it's disclosed in the contract. Next point. You have to appreciate, to be successful in this business, that you have to begin with the end in mind. You have to understand that 99% of all the complaints about wholesalers and their ethics, their practices, etc., are all started by a failure to plan accordingly. Therefore, take the time necessary to learn your craft. Join the Premium Podcast Plus, download our free e-courses such as FSBO Domination or any of our other free resources, especially the videos we have on Sell More Homes Now on YouTube. In order for you to wholesale ethically, it requires you to change, not the seller, not the other wholesalers, and certainly not the other realtors in the world. You have to get better. Take personal pride in educating yourself. Why? Because your customers, your clients, they'll thank you for it. And until next time, you have a powerful sales day.
ROC, we running this rap shit. Memphis Bleak, we running this rap shit. B-Mac, we running this rap shit. Freeway, we running this rap shit. Old Sparks, we running this rap shit.